Hey everybody, here is your market minute for Sunday, the 13th of August. Now, the last time we did a market minute, the price was right up here and we were saying, my goodness, this is an amazing rally. It just won't stop and it may be consolidating as it grinds higher. And so finally, markets relented and the news came along just in time to meet the needs in the market, and we've seen a drop here about 3% or so on the S&P, a little bit more than that on the NASDAQ. And I would say all is right with the world again. Remember, we had this sort of conundrum where we had the weekly chart in total exhaustion and just screaming higher. And then you had the smaller time frame chart, the daily chart over here, absolutely wound up. Just completely wound up with a super high energy peak. So when that happens, the daily chart wants to go somewhere. It's been consolidating, it's done the heavy lifting, it's ready to go. It doesn't care whether it goes up or down. And then it defers over to the larger time frame, the weekly chart, and says, hey, I want to go somewhere. Can you go higher? No. Okay, well, let's go lower. And this is what's happened. So all is right with the world. This pullback makes total sense right now. The price is coming down to what we call a swing test. So this is former resistance, boom, becomes new support from the upside on a test from the upside. So this should bounce from here, but what I'm concerned about is not necessarily if and when it bounces, it's the next move. So it's not this move that I care about because this is just the initial move. If this is going to turn into something more serious, if this is going to turn into a larger correction, a full 10%, which would drop the price down to here somewhere, then this is what we're going to have to look for. We're going to have to look for the reversal moving into larger time frames. And the way that that happens, the way that propagates, is if we do get a bounce, and that bounce only goes up to a lower high. And then that lower high becomes a bull trap, traps everybody buying the dip, and then undercuts the lows. This would be an undercut below 4,400. And then this is where things tend to get away. And this is somewhat what we saw back here in April of 22. We saw the initial move happen, and then we saw a lower high set up, and that was sort of that was the warning shot, and then we rallied up to a lower high. That became an important lower high. So it's always the transition from an uptrend into a series of lower highs, lower lows that we have to watch for. So again, my point here is that it's not necessarily important what happens on this first pullback. There will always be a bounce. There's too much sideline money for a bounce not to occur, and two-way tape will always happen. But it's what happens on that bounce and whether it creates a higher high and reconfirms the uptrend, or whether it prints a lower high and rolls over into a downtrend. And so what that would do is that would take the weekly chart into a lower high and then start it on a downtrend. Right now it's an uptrend on the weekly chart. So a lower high, lower low combination on the weekly chart turns that into a downtrend. And then that begins a monthly pullback. So you can see how this thing all propagates and it sort of unfurls, starting with what happens in the smaller time frames. So again, this pullback, no big deal. This is exactly what it should be doing. If the price pulls into a lower high and rolls over from there, which would take a week or two to occur, then we know that there's something more serious afoot. But for right now, business as usual. This is exactly what the market needs to restore the uptrend. That's it for today's Market Minute. Have a great week. We'll see you in the next one.